Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. The Demon Disorder tells the story of Graham, Jake, and Phillip Reilly and their deceased father. Their paths collide when a family secret is discovered, leading their father's garage to become the site of revenge from beyond the grave. Yes, folks, this is our raw reaction review for The Demon Disorder. Kicking things off with a huge thanks to the folks over at Shudder, as always, for sending us a screener for this one. They like to take care of us, and we appreciate it greatly. Because, yeah, it's no secret if you've been watching our channel, Shudder has been having one hell of a year with lots of their exclusives. Not every single one has been a winner, but dare I say, I don't think any of them have been, like, bad movies. And I'm happy to report that Demon Disorder keeps that trend going, because I really enjoyed this movie. I thought this was quite an interesting take on the possession story angle. And I think that's something that we're starting to see a little bit more of now, more so than ever, because I think maybe it was Exorcist Believer, or maybe it was just building up before that, but I think people are finally starting to get away from that traditional possession story and really starting to open that genre up to some fresh ideas.
Yeah, maybe the possession subgenre, in a sense, has kind of hit that moment of something like how the zombie subgenre has, where it's been told to death and there wasn't any new storytelling. So I think that craving for more of a unique take, adding a different kind of lore to those possession films. I think that's what we're going to start seeing here, as we've already seen. But I think, in the next few years, certainly it's going to those more unique takes and really the versatility of the subgenre. I got to say, the Demon Disorder does take advantage of that to an extent. I think, looking at the trailer here, and I'm sure, spoiler-free review, if you've seen the trailer, maybe you're coming here to get an idea. I think the trailer itself certainly positions this film more so, I guess, very possession heavy, very action heavy as to what is going on, where this story is very more about, I guess, that human story. That possession angle is there. It is a big deal in the film, but we're sitting with our characters and understanding those relationships with these characters. So you're getting a human story and also a demon story.
Yeah, and that was something that you're right. The trailer, even though I only watched a part of it, and it was while I was putting together my list for September, I didn't need a trailer for this. This has actually been on my radar for a lot longer than before Shudder had picked it up, because oddly enough, a friend of my wife's who works in Australia works on productions and films and things. She is actually friends with somebody who did some of the grip work for this film. So I learned about the Demon Disorder like last year early on, and then it just so happened to pop back up when Shudder had acquired it. So I was like, oh, hell yeah, there you go. And yeah, this was definitely something that was a bit more of a surprise to me, because, you look at that poster, you read that concept, and you think that this is definitely going to kind of fall a little bit more on the traditional side of like demon possession horror. But yeah, no, they do decide to focus a lot more on this familial relationship with these three brothers. And I thought that was really interesting. And I think that that's probably the highlight of the film for me, aside from what I would say are the practical effects. But I'll save that for a minute, because I think that the cast here, we have Charles Cottier as Philip. He's the youngest brother. Christian Willis as Graham. And then I believe it's Dirk Hunter as Jake Reilly. And these three, I thought that their chemistry was great. I really enjoyed especially Jake Reilly's performance in this. He kind of plays this brother who's sort of at his wit's end, in a sense, with dealing with kind of what the family is dealing with. And he comes in such an interesting way, and I love the interactions, especially between him and the oldest brother. And I think that they definitely really carry this film for quite some time.
Yeah, going into the story itself, we talk about Australian horror, and we have a clear love for it. A lot of them are really well done. Conceptually, they're great films, but the acting is something we always rave about. It just seems like in Australian horror, they're really able to assemble just a great cast. We've seen Beaten to Death, which wasn't something that really knocked our socks off. We weren't really the biggest fans of it, but it had some great acting in there, some great actors,
Hmm.
and The Demon Disorder is no different. And when you're really diving into these familial roots, in a sense where we're not diving too deep into a lot of the background, but we are seeing these issues up front: alcoholism, you know, problems growing up, things like that. And we kind of get these flashbacks of some understanding of what has been going on. And there is a pretty significant age gap between some of the brothers, which I thought was rather interesting. Really brings a different kind of feel to when you're dealing with family issues. That kind of caught me off guard as well. So it really does feel authentic. It feels unique to the story itself. And I love when we're just kind of sitting here understanding these relationships between these brothers and the tension that has been brought. And we're kind of playing catch up here where things have happened and we're coming in after the fact, and then we're kind of re-entering the situation in a sense. And I absolutely love that because, I don't want to be told the story outright. I want to kind of connect some dots. And I think The Demon Disorder does that rather well, of letting you piece together the story so by the end of it, you get a full picture. And some of the acting in here, the two older brothers, I think are just so well done. Jake, the oldest brother, for me, really did it. His introduction, you can tell he's just absolutely tormented by things. And when you have those actors that are willing to, go those boundaries and make you really feel what he is supposed to be feeling, I think it makes you resonate with these stories on a different level. So yeah, we come for that possession angle, the practical effects, but there is a lot of great acting in here as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say that there's definitely a lot of great acting from the trio here. And I think that they definitely found a good dynamic and a good chemistry between the three of them. And you need that when you're carrying a story like this. Now, the next big highlight for me was clearly these practical effects. I mean, there is a good deal, I would say, surprisingly. Because with possession, they go one way or another usually when it comes to these kind of movies. This one goes very much on. I compared this in my list to When Evil Lurks. It goes a lot harder towards that angle when it comes to more of a body horror kind of possession story. And it's got some really great practical effects, some really cool sequences. There's a lot of big surprises that just kind of left me scratching my head for a while, but not in the sense of like bewilderment, as more of just curiosity, because it's like, what is going on? Like, how does this work? And they do get into it, and everything does come to a head. It's very satisfying, in my opinion, with how it comes together. And I love that for a film with such a limited budget and such a limited scope as far as just what they were able to do, they really swung for the fences with not only the practical effects, but the way that they implement them into the story.
Yeah, it feels very natural. While there are practical effects in here, and there are some shining scenes. Now, this film isn't, you're not being bombarded with gore and practical effects
Hmm.
scene from scene from scene. They focus on the storytelling aspect of it, and then when they do decide to showcase the practical effects, they certainly showcase them. There are
Hmm.
two pivotal scenes in here that I thought are rather interesting. One that happens a little bit earlier on, and you get to see something that is small, and I thought that was rather intriguing because it was like, I was not expecting that. Again, they do take a very unique possession angle here. So when you see something that pops up on screen, it's rather jarring to say, "Oh, we're melding this imagery into this idea of possession." But I thought it worked rather well. It was certainly unsettling, and then by the time we get to the end, that's the real kind of, I think, what everyone's going to be talking about after you walk out of the demon disorder. It's something that's so well done, so unsettling, Cronenberg-esque, I would even say, and
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
to even bring Cronenberg in a conversation with a smaller film like this is just a merit in its own right, because it is absolutely unsettling the way they present it, and how this thing's coming about. I guess I'll say that's as far as I'm gonna go. And what you see in the way that it's shot, it's absolutely terrifying, you know. And again, this isn't something where we go scene by scene by scene. We're going to bombard you with practical effects. They're modest in that aspect of it. Of hey, when we're going to actually showcase this stuff, we're going to make it have meaning. We're going to make it leave a lasting impression on you. And the Demon Disorder certainly does that.
100%. And when we are kind of discussing this film, I know that we wanted to really highlight the actors. We wanted to highlight the effects, and I do want to say that I think the film is shot very well as well. I didn't want to say as well, but that's what I said. It is very well shot. It's something that I took notice to, especially because there are moments, I will say, where you can tell there's budget limitations. You can tell that they definitely, it seems like they had a little bit more money in certain sections than they did others. But I think they're able to bring kind of this gritty consistency to it. And I think that they were very smart by really only having the film take place in 2 locations. And I think that they use both locations very well, because I think that they both turn out to be very creepy and interesting in their own right. Now, my biggest complaint with the Demon Disorder, just on the whole, has to be some of the supporting cast. Once you get outside of these 3 brothers, there's a very limited number of people that kind of get introduced. That's all I'll say. And they don't feel like there is as much care put into them in the script. I don't want to say that it's necessarily the actors that are portraying them that are having the issues. I think they're working with what they have, but it does feel like there are characters that were just put in here for, an eventual body count, or just to be there to, kind of shake things up, maybe make the feel, I think you said right before we started, make the film feel a bit bigger than it actually was.
Yeah, I think there's one character in particular that's introduced at the beginning and then also comes back toward the end. That just it kind of seems like that character was introduced to more so facilitate a situation rather than have any actual moments that you can really pick out and say, they gave this character something to chew on in the scene. It just seems like that character is just on the sidelines. As a side player more so than anything. And then there are some characters, and it's not a spoiler, but they're on screen, off screen, more of a high and by. It's like they don't really do too much. It's just kind of used to facilitate the story, and they're just there, and they serve not really a big purpose. And when you're comparing them to these characters that we've been with, and having those situations where we feel like we're resonating with these other characters, and then you just kind of have some that are just there. There wasn't really necessarily a need for that, where you can really just kind of more so expand your story and do something. So there are some characters that just kind of fall by the wayside here. But bigger pluses than minuses, I would say, in this.
Yeah.
But overall, it's just kind of, there are some characters in here that you just are asking why.
Yeah, right. And I think that it really only becomes an issue towards the 3rd act. It does kind of make things feel a little wonky, especially with kind of how the situations start to play out. That's the only time I think, because I ended up watching this movie twice. So that's the only time I can say, especially on my second viewing, where I started to kind of question why they made certain decisions and why they chose to kind of let certain things play out a bit longer than I feel like they needed to, and why characters were making decisions that just felt a bit off. It felt a bit like, okay, we have to have somebody do this so this can happen. And it's like, okay, it seems very clear that it was kind of a rush of a mess to the finish, in my opinion. That's a little harsher than I think I want to come off with it, but it does feel a bit disjointed there. So I could easily see that kind of frustrating some people, but I think there is something in this 3rd act, especially for, like we said, people who are a fan of practical effects, people who like creatures, people who like, all that good stuff. There's going to be something there that is going to definitely make this worth the price of admission for sure, because it's impressive. It's very well done for the budget of this film. And I think it definitely makes the Demon Disorder set itself apart a little bit more from your stereotypical possession story. And I think it works very well, not only on like a freak you out kind of gross out level, but also on the emotional level of the story once you get the context of it. So For me, I am definitely going to be giving The Demon Disorder a recommend. This is a little bit more of a mid-tier recommend for me because I think although I enjoyed it, I could easily see people just not really getting into this one as much. But I think it just depends on what you kind of want out of a possession story.
Yeah, certainly. And like I said, when they show these practical effects, they really do showcase them. What Dylan is talking about is something that is going to be burned into your brain.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, as I mentioned in the trailer, they do spoil it somewhere in the trailer, unfortunately. So, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be prepared when they go into it, but it is still absolutely unsettling when you do see it. And then once you do get that context, it's a little heartbreaking, to be honest. So, they really do take you on this emotional thrill ride where you're resonating with your characters. They are very tension filled, at odds with each other. But it feels like a natural family brothers fight. What can you do? So it really does feel like an authentic take on a family, a unique take on a family that we don't see that often. So I really did enjoy that human storytelling. And then when you spruce in those practical effects the way that they did, and with that ending scene when they really do lay it all out there, that is really kind of the exclamation point, the cherry on top, I think. So this one, easy recommend for me. I'm probably sitting maybe a little bit of a stronger recommend than you, but I think this one really does it for me in terms of that storytelling. It's got that Australian horror feel to it as well. So that was a big bonus for me. This one I can definitely see myself going back to revisit, as it is going to be on Shudder. So this is something that I think a lot of people should check out. Just don't get your hopes up looking at the way the trailer's cut that this is going to be an all-out practical effect gore fest. That's not what this story is. It's more of a human story, and they do have those practical effects, and they do have meaning to them when they do show them off. So this one, recommend. Just go in knowing that this isn't your kind of blood-filled, demon-filled gore fest.
Yeah, this is no Evil Dead, ladies and gentlemen, but it is very good. So yeah, that's going to wrap us up here for our review of The Demon Disorder. This bad boy is going to be available tomorrow on Shudder if you're watching this the day it comes out. So definitely check this thing out. Like we said, it's going to be streaming, so you will be able to watch it day and date, and let us know what you thought. We are definitely, like Luke said, we're on the same page there. He seems to like it a little bit more than me. Again, I think maybe it's because I watched it twice, so I was a little pickier on my second viewing, but don't let that take away from my praises of it. I do think this is a very solid movie at the end of the day, and I'm really happy with the product as a whole. So definitely let us know down below, and check out some of our other reviews. I got to check out Beetlejuice recently. That was interesting. And of course, Luke and I, we were just wrapping up at Fright Fest recently with a film that you absolutely need to keep your eye out for. So check out our review for Test Screening if you want to hear some more body horror praise. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up here. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the hard shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna smash your ass.